Hello, Orange voters. Welcome. And thanks for coming out for this opening of the campaign season, the first debate between incumbent Jim Zioli, seeking his 10th term as incumbent, of course, and Democratic challenger Mark Moyer, a financial professional. I'm Steve Heckman, publisher of Milford Orange Times. It's my pleasure and privilege to do this once again. We love doing it. Our moderators are Brandon. Brandon is editor-in-chief of the Milford Orange Times. And to Brandon, raise your hand. That's Brandon. To Brandon's right is Dave Crow, an Orange resident, and also a contributor to the Milford Orange Times paper. Our timekeepers are Robbie Thomas, a senior at Notre Dame, and Michael Brangi, a junior at Amity. Many thanks to Chris Kelly for his work with OGOT and setting this up. You can watch it on television when you get home, I guess. And Dennis, I don't know if Dennis is in the room, Dennis Krisick, he sets the chairs. So he's a good guy. He works here in the town. Lastly, Commander, we've asked Commander Lewis Merritt of American Legion Post 127, of which I'm a proud member, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Commander.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. On behalf of the veterans who have served our country, I want to say thank you. The American Legion was founded in 1919 by veterans returning from the First World War. And with it, they set up an organization to service all veterans who served in our armed forces during time of conflict. One of the primary goals of the Legion, besides supporting our comrades, is to instill amongst the American people the sense of Americanism and the responsibilities and duties that we bear as citizens of this country. And with that, I want to thank you for coming tonight and participating in our political process, for this is what makes our country strong. Again, thank you.
Moving right along, we have the folks from the two committees who would like to introduce their slate. Come on up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dominic Lombardi. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Orange Republican Town Committee. Thank you to Mr. Heckman at the Milford Orange Times and our moderators and our candidates for being here. On behalf of the Republican Party, I would like to introduce our 2023 municipal slate. We ask that the candidates come and stand up, and then we'll hold our applause till the end and give a clap. So for the Board of Selectmen, we have Mr. Ralph Okenquist, Miss Judy Wright-Williams, and Mr. John Carangelo. Board of Finance, we have Mr. Kevin Houlihan and Mr. Jim Leahy. Town Clerk, Miss Mary Shaw. Tax Collector, Mr. Tom Hurley. Board of Zoning, Judy Smith and Tom Tarenti. Orange Board of Education, Bill Kraut, Ken Ziman, and Anthony Scarinzi. Amity Board of Education, Mike McDonough, Dana Lombardi, and Kathy Bradley. And our constables, Jody Damon, Mike Donadeo, Glenn Papello, and Gary Palermo. As well as our first selectman candidate, who none of you know, Mr. James Zioli. It's my privilege to call up my friend, the chairman of the Democratic Town Committee, Mr. Joe Marulli.
Two things. I've been in this town since 1992. This is the first time that two Italians have introduced all the candidates. So I think it's going to be a good 2 years for Orange. Secondly, thank you, Dominic. Dominic is vice chair. I am a level up. I am the chairman. So you listen to me more, okay? All right, we're going to introduce our candidates, and enough of my jokes. We have a good, I was very happy with the group that came forward this year. We have a very good combination of both incumbents and new people that are running for the first time. So I think that brings a lot of different diversity and maybe some new ideas to our town. With that said, Board of Selectmen, I'm going to introduce the guy that's run the most, Mitchell Goldblatt. Melissa Johnson, who's running for the first time for office. PJ Shanley, who has served on the Board of Finance and is running for Board of Selectmen this year. Board of Finance, Jen Alfaro. She would be a first-time holder in that office. And a man could not be with us tonight, but she is also running for Board of Finance. Amity Board of Education, Ken Briota, first-time candidate. Paul Davis, current chairman, longtime Orange resident, longtime contributor to this town in a variety of political offices. This one I always have problems with. Jennifer Jacquet. Jacquet, I'm sorry, Jennifer. She has a sprained ankle. I don't know if she's going to make it up here, if she's here. But she is also running for Amity Board of Education. And another first-time candidate, Josh Orlinski, running for Amity Board of Education. Orange Board of Education, Betty Hadlock, who currently serves. Ralph Margai, who is a first-time candidate. Sue Riccio, who currently serves. Okay. Town Planning and Zoning, Paul Kaplan, who has been a long-time member, zoning officer of Town Planning and Zoning. Ken Lenz, running for the first time for this office. His run for other offices. Scott Rogulski, who is running for the first time for this office. And our constables, Jody Deach, who has been around Orange politics for a long time. Santo Galtiato, same thing. And Randy Thomas, same thing. So that is our group for 2023, and we look forward to your support in November. Thank you.
And now the fun will begin. We'll lead off with Brandon, who will have explained the ground rules that we have, and then we'll start with the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you both for being here tonight. And thank you, everybody in the audience, for sitting with us as well. We're going to begin with the candidates introducing themselves, and then we will move on to a series of questions based on those suggested to us by readers. We'll have a short break about halfway through, around 8, followed by an opportunity for more questions suggested by readers and possibly those in the audience. And we will close with comments by the candidates. Our plan is to end around 9-ish, could be a little later, between 9 and 9:30. To start, we're going to allow both of the candidates to up to 5 minutes for an opening statement about themselves and their candidacy, their sense of the challenges and opportunities in Orange for this leadership role, and why you think you are better suited for the role than your opponent. And we will begin with Mr. Zioli. So you're up.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. There you go. Thank you, Chris. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out to this debate, and thank you to Steve Heckman and Brandon for spearheading this and participating, and all of you here and at home, and Mr. Moyer and your team, welcome also. I'm Jim Zioli. I have been the first selectman for 18 years in town. I was on the Board of Selectmen for 6 years before that. I started a long time ago. I was born here, and I have lived here for 64 years and 2 days. So that's a long time. I've watched a lot grow and change in this town, and sometimes what we didn't think necessarily was a good thing way back when has evolved into some of the best times ever. You know, it started out, I think, when I was like 9 years old. Entered People's Bank used to hold a daffodil contest every year with the best cut daffodils. We started with contests like that. We had a 4-H club here in town, and the young men that were in that 4-H club were the young men that cleared what is now known as the fairgrounds next door to this building. That was done by a group of young men that were spearheaded by Walt Vesputa, who made that possible, and we cleared the first 6 acres in 3 days, a group of young guys. And it was very rewarding, very involved, and you look at it now and it's been expanded 3 times that fairgrounds, all done by that same group of people, and it's something that makes you very proud. I've been able to more than double the open space in this community, which is something that is very near and dear to many. Many people who move here don't realize when they drive through some of the streets and all in town, and there's a lot of undeveloped parcels, that when I was a kid, there were a lot more. When I graduated from college, I was farming almost 290 acres around here. And you couldn't put 290 acres together today if you wanted to. Many areas that were fields and cultivated land are long gone. So we saw that, and I set a goal, and we'll make that goal. The town of Orange is 11,000 acres. And I said, when we hit the first 10th, I said, we need to keep going and hit the second 10th. And I think that is very important, both for the environment, for a lot of the habitat, for a lot of animals. We've seen a lot of animals come back into the area. They need places to live as well as people need places to live. So then you have to start to consider people need places to live. Please shut your phones off if you do have them on. So we've had to reach out and look at other opportunities for people. You may love it, you may not love it, but we did look into the new apartments that will be populating this late fall, early 2024 at Firelight Shopping Center. Many of you may remember the worn-out strip plaza that stood on that site that now has a really quite a kind of a beautiful new apartment building there. While not everybody agrees with that need, there is a need. We have a lot of young people that would like to live in town, that a house is not at that attainable level yet. And we have a lot of empty nesters that want to consider having something here and something maybe we're in a warmer climate. This offers that opportunity. We have very little in the means of affordable. And we had a developer came in who wanted to buy the former trailer park site and put the affordable housing project on the Post Road. And I met with them and said, Post Road's not really a great place to have school buses stopping to pick up kids, but there's a property right around the corner. And they went and looked at that, and there's a 46-unit, pretty nice-looking affordable project coming along right on Smith Farm Road over there. Not everybody's happy about it, but it is one of these things that absolutely fills a need for our residents. Sometimes it's cheaper to stay in their own home than it is to move to a condo. They think, we'll move to a condo, we don't have to cut the grass, we don't have to shovel the driveway, anything. Well, sometimes those HOA fees and all become quite burdensome, and when they already live in and own their own home, they can figure for the whole year what their budget will be for that, and it makes it a little bit easier. We try to offer services that make it possible for them to be there. We have some of the best emergency service, what's that mean, 30 seconds? Yeah. Okay. Best emergency services in the town. Our paramedics, that was a program brought on when Ms. Berger was first selectman, offers one of the best emergency fly-ins when you're having a family member or somebody that's in need. I used it multiple times, both with my mother and my father, and I'm very grateful for every penny we spend on that program. We have more to say, but the men are telling me, time out.
Thank you very much. Go ahead. Mr. Moyer, if you would like to give your opening statement, also 5 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Mark Moyer, and I would like to take this time to thank Steve Heckman and the Milford Orange Times for hosting this debate, along with our moderator and audience who are either here in person or watching from the comfort of their own home. I've been working in the financial sector for nearly 40 years, and I'm confident that I'll be able to handle the fiscal responsibility that this town expects while judiciously using our overfunded balance to address the issues that are important to our community. In my roles in the business sector and volunteer groups, I'm involved in budget, planning, and resource allocation. This involves being very analytical, as well as being able to work successfully with others, many of whom have diverse viewpoints of how money should be spent. From joining the Orange Recycling Committee years ago to lending a hand at the town shredding day, to getting more involved and taking on more leadership roles, I've built relationships with many community members and town hall employees. In fact, I actively participate in many town events throughout the years, and this has given me the opportunity to interact with residents from various backgrounds. On a more serious note, listen to the issues that are important to them. My wife Eileen and I have called Orange home now for 25 years. We moved to Orange. It was a great town. Our neighborhood is awesome. We brought back block parties. We did that for 10 years until COVID interrupted. I think it's great. We have a nice community here. We have built a life that centers around being involved in this community, from partaking in events hosted by local organizations and attending cultural events at a local synagogue, attending Amity High School theater production, and much more. I'm pleased to recognize the wonderful groups that help our community thrive, such as the Rotary and the Lions Club, the Orange Community Women, the Orange Historical Society, and the Orange Players Club, just to name a few. These organizations play a vital role in the well-being of our community and should be recognized by our leaders for the services they provide. I've talked to representatives from many of these groups who don't feel that they are getting the support that they feel they deserve. Throughout this campaign, I've been told how refreshing it is to have a prospective first selectman who asks for input and listens to what the people have to say, even if I don't always agree with their viewpoint. I've been listening to residents, especially those with experience, handling the many issues we face, which will be key to moving Orange forward. Most importantly, I feel there's a lack of communication from the current leadership around our town's website. As of 2 days ago, if you go to the First Selectmen's page, it's updated with just one post from 2021. Whether you're new to town or a longstanding resident, I think our town's website should be a fountain of current information. It's woefully outdated in terms of content and functionality. In addition, there are no active social media pages from the town. You need to either sign up as Mr. Zioli's personal Facebook page or get occasional comments out of the newspapers, which do not provide residents all the information they need. While other towns have e-newsletters that go out to the entire community summarizing all that's happening in town on a regular basis. So why doesn't Orange? However, now I'd like to take a minute to say how proud I am to be part of a great democracy and recognize another democracy, Israel, and condemn the Hamas terrorist attack and inhumane atrocities inflicted on the innocent men, women, and children, and say that we should stand and support the state of Israel and its right to defend itself. I'm looking forward to speaking tonight and having the opportunity to be able to connect with you, the voters, and share my views. We have a desirable town that people want to move into, primarily because of the great education system we provide, yet I know that we can do better for everyone. Thank you.
Good evening, Orange voters. I'm proud to be here tonight. My name is Dave Crow. I'm going to explain the format we're going to be using a little bit, and then we'll get started with our questions. Brandon and I will be posing questions to the candidates. A good rule of thumb is when I'm posing a question, Mr. Moyer will be asked to be the first respondent, and then Jim Zioli, he'll be given 3 minutes to respond, and then Jim will be given 3 minutes to respond to Mr. Moyer, and then Mr. Moyer will have 2 minutes to rebut. When Brandon's asking a question, Jim Zioli will be the first to answer, and Mr. Moyer will then be given 3 minutes to respond, and Mr. Zioli will have 2 minutes to rebut. Does everybody understand the rules? All right. We'll alternate back and forth. So with that, without further ado, we'll launch into our first question. And we'll start by, I'll pose this question to Mr. Moyer first, and then he'll have 3 minutes to respond, and Jim will have 3 minutes to respond to that. So, Mr. Moyer, in your opinion, what is the first selectman's most important duty? What is the central tenet of the job of first selectman?
The role of first selectman should be primarily as a leader, to lead by example. Our first selectman should be out there supporting everybody in the town. He should be available and listening to everybody's questions and coming up with the proper responses or finding what the proper responses are. We should include everybody in the decision and process making for the town when it comes to community things like our playground, anything to do with expanding Fred Wolf Park. I think the first selectman primarily needs to show his face and show what he can do to bring people together and grow the community.
Thank you, Mr. Moyer. Mr. Zioli, it's your turn to
All
respond.
right, guys, I'm only going to ask you to be a little more on game so we know where we are, all right? Thank you. I think that to be available and be answerable and opinionable and knowledgeable of the entire town is the first and utmost, foremost thing that the first selectman needs to be. Any of you in this room, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or some other group, has had the opportunity to come in and see me. I see people on both sides of the room here that have just popped in. Can I speak to you about this or speak to you about that? If I don't have an appointment or something, absolutely. If there's an appointment, we'll give you an opportunity to come back. But there's many of you in this room that have taken advantage of that opportunity. As far as making decisions, and Wolf Park was brought up as one of them, Jim didn't make those decisions himself. Those decisions are made by a board of selectmen. And everything that had to do with that playground that many thought was such a terrible thing, who are now telling me how wonderful it is, failed to realize that the Board of Selectmen acted on every single part of that project from phase one, which was clearing the land. So it's a misnomer if you think that Jim Zioli did that all himself. As far as being involved in this town, it's pretty hard to be in more places than Jim Zioli. Jim Zioli has been involved as a volunteer fireman, retired from that proudly. Transported your children to school for over 25, 26 years, proudly, with never a problem. Cooks like nobody cooks, so that Ron Rotolo and Lori Rotolo have stuff to put out the front of that tent at the fair. 750 pounds of pork shoulders alone, never mind beef roast, 160 pounds of chicken thighs, everything else. I am available, I am there, and I am part of the fabric of this community. If you fail to agree with that, come and ask me why. I had an officer come to me today, a police officer, state policeman who just moved to town. And at first he said he was unhappy about something with the town. And I said, well, tell me. No, that's not appropriate. Tell me. No. And I said, do you know who I am? And he said, no, sir. And I said, my name's Jim Zioli. Tell me what the problem is. And it was a problem with one of our departments that he ran into when he bought his house a year ago here in town. I said, here's what you have to do to solve it. Come and see me in my office. We'll straighten that out for you. It's not a problem.
I had to interrupt a good story,
Yep.
Jim, but we're out of time.
We're done. I saw the
Mr.
tent.
Moyer, there's 2 minutes for you to respond.
Yeah, thank you. I think that while Jim says that, the Board of Selectmen approved everything at Fred Wolf Park, I also think that, that the community still should have been involved. I think that there should have been a plan, and I think that, the ad hoc committee that was created after the fact doesn't really serve the purpose of setting the playground where it should have been to begin with. Anyway, back to the first selectman's responsibilities. I don't know, is Jim at every single event? He says he is. I've been at a lot of events, and I haven't seen Jim at a lot of events.
I didn't say I was. I didn't say I was.
Okay, that's fair enough. So I just think that, you need to foster a relationship with all your groups and organizations and come out and support them, and that you need to be out there, whether or not you are for the arts or the culture, but just to be out there and say, hey, you guys are doing a great job. I think that the more we build people up, the better leader we are. The more we listen to people and their opinions, the better decisions we can make. I think that the first selectman is, he has boards, he has committees, and he needs to respect and listen to them, and I just don't feel right now that we get enough of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zioli, on the topic of communication, would you describe your communication style and what communication tools you would use to deliver your messages and vision to the residents of Orange?
The largest part of our communication is done through the Board of Selectmen. We're elected by the people to conduct the people's business. While you may not like that, some of you who have sat on that board in previous times also know that that's true. You conduct the people's business. If the New Haven Register or your paper or the other papers, if they contact us, they can have any information they wish. The Register has one reporter covering 4 towns. They don't do that. There's you covering Orange and Milford. I don't think you have time for all of that. But Tina is here for one of the other papers, the Orangetown News. She's one person covering, I think, 2 or 3 towns that I know of. So that's very much a challenge. We have OGAT, which is constantly rolling with our meetings, our boards and commissions and events. And the news that comes out of the different departments is part of. I don't micromanage community services to put out their newsletter, how they put it out. I don't micromanage Park and Recreation to put out their bulletin. I was the one who got Park and Rec to put in RecTrack so that people could register online. That's the first selectman's job. I don't have to go out and sell the Park and Rec department. The Park and Rec department has 8 staff people approximately in the upper administration that do this. The Orange Visiting Nurse Service, you'll see their banner down the street. We meet on a weekly basis. But they are marketing their division. Do I talk about every division when asked? Absolutely. Do I feel that we need to have every bit of information out there like a blurb for everybody to jump on who wants instantaneous information when their cell phone goes off? You have to know each thing as it's happening second by second. I'm not a believer in that. I don't believe in that. I believe it will be in the papers. It will be on OGAT. You can come and ask. You can come and call. But I am not a believer in 30-second news that as it happens, we need to post it out there. And the town of Orange has proven that, and the people have proven that. As far as going to every event and every happening in town, I don't go to every event and every happening in town. But then again, many of those people don't go to events that I go to. Everybody has different tastes. And I think everybody is allowed that, and everybody has their own life. So they are allowed to pick and choose which they want to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moyer, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Well, it's true, we have our newspaper, we have OGAT, we have some other things. I just think that in today's times, we need quicker technology. We need to get out there with some e-blast. People need to sign up. There are a lot of people who want to know what's going on, and then if they don't, if they aren't able to attend a meeting, everybody's busy, then they need some sort of information at their fingertips. I think, if you go to the town's website, it's sorely lacking. I think it needs some updates so that people can get information at their disposal and at their time. And if you get an e-blast, all it has to do is have 5 or 6 bullet points of what's going on during the week and a link if you want further information. It doesn't have to be that long. I do encourage people to come out and go to board meetings if they can and find out what is going on in town. I do encourage people to come to the first selectman's office or town hall and talk to some representatives that, if you have questions. But unfortunately, everybody is not able to do that. A lot of people are working all the time. So I think we just have to take care of the technology that's available to us today in order to get the information out as quickly as possible. Yeah, we're not forecasters. We're not going to put out data that, we're guessing at. But, tell people, hey, it's trunk or treat. Here's the date. Give it a time. Put an email blast, an e-blast out to say, don't miss it. I mean, if we just rely on all our groups to put out information, and as a town we're not taking and consolidating and putting it out there ourselves, we're missing an opportunity to connect with all of our residents and give them a chance to see what's going on and come out and partake. Thank you.
Mr. Zioli, you have 2 minutes.
I think that it's summed up pretty good. Mark encourages you to come to the town hall to find out what's going on, yet in one of your very first videos, you yourself said that you don't go to the town hall very often. It's not a place that you like or feel that you have to go. So, you might want to think about that video. As far as a lot of organizations, we announce all the events that are happening at a monthly basis at the announcements at our meeting, and if they don't see them, that's unfortunate, but they are announced every month. They are put out there, whatever may be going on for that month. And the departments, it's not just private groups. There are departments of the town that handle their department. That is their job. I don't run the Board of Education. I don't run the Park and Recreation Department. We have a director, Dan Lynch does it. We have Marissa Moriello runs the OVNA, and the list goes on and on. I said, those are the people who put out the blasts for their departments. They all have a commission also. Those commissions oversee the happenings of their department. If you want to micromanage, you can do that, but I do enough of that trying to solve other projects and problems that hit us on a sometimes daily, weekly basis. Last Wednesday, we were hit with a problem with a playground for the nursery school here. This Wednesday, Mitch is handing out the paperwork that the director from OCNS agreed with, and we will be taking a straw poll amongst the selectmen and moving forward with new equipment at that playground for them. It took 1 week. That's all. Done. I'm done.
Mr. Moyer, we'll start with you again. Gentlemen, as you know, Orange has a significant fund balance or budget surplus. What, in your opinion, is the highest and best use of that fund balance for the town of Orange? Mr. Moyer, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, so we have run roughly 17 to 20% fund balance for the last several years. And I think that, it's nice to have money for a rainy day, but when you have some infrastructure problems, you need your roads paved, you need some repairs done at the library, the High Plains community, things like that, that you need to address those before they become more problematic and costly to fix down the road. So I think that while it's nice to have the money, we need to plan and use it. Even if we go out and ask the community, what do you want to see? There are a lot of things that can be done with that money, not just infrastructure, but recreational. We have a lot of open space, we have a lot of trails, and I think that, they need a lot of attention too. They need, I hear people who walk on them say, we need to clean them up, we need to get out there and fix them. So I think there's plenty of money to be spent without spending down the overfunded balance too much and still maintain what is required to keep our AAA balance and keep everybody happy. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Jim, you have 3 minutes.
I don't know if that's long enough. When I took office, we did not have the bond rating that we have now. We had a much lower bond rating when I took office. And it took time to build that bond rating up to a AAA bond rating, which I am very proud of. And yes, that was built up under my administration. Yes. And wait a minute, they only gave me 3 minutes. And so you think about that, and then you sit through a bond review with Standard & Poor's or Moody's, and what Anthony Nastri set as a floor for fund balance way back when, and I see Kevin McNabola standing there, and I know he'll remember it because he and Anthony were a tight pair, was 12 or 12.5%. Well, now Moody's and Standard & Poor's and these bond rating companies are looking for a floor of 15 to 17%. Some of these towns don't have that, and the bond rating shows it. Many don't understand what that means. That bond rating affects your interest rate. We have money borrowed at 0.90%. I mean, any of you would give your eye teeth to borrow money at less than 1%. I mean, it's amazing. And as far as that fund balance money, we use that money, and you need to attend some Board of Finance meetings or question, and you'll see that a lot of that money is designated to funds. I have not bonded money for road paving in 4 years. We paid cash each year between $1.25 million and $1.75 million a year, and still was able to reduce your mill rate again. Yes, I did. We do plan how that money is used, and the Board of Finance is integral in planning to use that money properly. And I'm the one who does say no to certain purchases and needs versus wants, and I'll ask them that. And sometimes they're not happy. Donnie Foyer went up to Bethany and saw all the equipment they had up there one time when he was friends with the past superintendent up there. He said, I'm sending Zioli up here. Half this equipment's going back. I found a $250,000 Mack truck that we purchased with 5,900 miles on it for $137,000 from another municipality that was getting rid of it. That is fiscal management and being very fiscally prudent. I am cheap, and anybody who thinks that I'm not, come ask some of the employees. They'll tell you. But as far as management of fund balance, the fund balance money is the excess money we need. You're in the finance industry. The money that people are giving you to invest isn't turning their
Mr.
lights on or
Zeoli.
heating their house. I'm done.
Again, I'm sorry to interrupt,
I'm
but
done.
Mark, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Yes, I think that you do need a fund balance, you do, but I think that it's a little too high, and I think that when you have needs and you have old buildings that need repairs and you have schools that need HVAC or air conditioning issues, you have, leaky roofs, you have an unfinished High Plains Community Center that started 10 years ago, that you need to direct that money properly into fixing those issues. And if you have roads, people are still complaining that, not enough roads are getting done. You say we have the money, so we should allocate a little bit more. I don't see any harm in going down a few percentage points to getting this done. It just seems like it's a prudent thing to do and will increase the value for the residents in town. Thank you.
Mr. Zeoli, how do you think, or do you know, how the recent revaluation is going to affect the economics of the town?
That kind of ties into the close of Mark's comments there, quite honestly. If we pave more roads, it'll increase the values of your homes. For crying out loud, look at the values of your homes already. There's many people that have homes that were assessed at $300,000, $350,000 ranch homes, and some of the older homes and all that are selling for $550,000, $650,000. That alone is a craziness. But as we watch the revaluation process go, no, it is not public yet, just so you know. Some people they're getting notices of what's going on. The values of your home may rise from a $300,000 home to a $500,000 home. Your assessed value is 70% of that. But then the budget is based on the grand list, not on the flat value of your house. So once all values are calculated and computed, a budget is then developed by the Board of Finance, the finance director, the assistant, myself, and department heads. Then, through the magic of math, they do the calculation, and that will set the mill rate. So if the grand list increases by $1 billion due to increased values in homes because of the market, the way it has gone, Orange is a very desirable place to be, the mill rate declines because of that. And because it's still a balancing act of the dollars that need to be raised to cover the budget. And so if the grand list grows, the mill rate will decline. Your tax amount that you pay should be approximately the same, but there are people who have places that are spectacular or have done great improvements and stuff. You are going to see an increase, but you know that when you're doing those major improvements or rebuilding or completely gutting and starting out new. But that's how it's a balancing act. So as far as how it's going to affect, that's an unknown at this moment because we haven't seen the complete grand list balancing. Commercial properties, I mean, the building that the Grind just bought, it's a beautiful building they're putting in there, $4.1 million. Hitchcock Plaza just sold for $7 million. Those are values that are much higher than we have them currently set at. So if a lot of those commercial properties see those kind of increases, that also helps offset your residential tax value. So we'll wait and see.
Mr. Moyer, you also have 3 minutes.
Yes, revaluation. Homes have gone up roughly 60%. We know that. Some people, as Jim said, correctly alluded to the fact that depending on where you live, you may see an increase, you may not see an increase. It all depends on what's happening around you to the value that drives up the value of your home. And it's true, he'll have to sit down with our finance director and then the Board of Finance to figure out what the shift has been and how much taxes the homeowner will have to bear after it's all said and done, and then factor in where the mill rate's going to be to see where taxes are. I'm going to just say, you know, taxes probably will rise. How much they'll rise, I don't know. Is there going to be a plan in place to phase in any tax increase? Depends on how big the tax increase is. But, you know, one thing to note is, you know, the town of Orange deferred their revaluation. They could have done it in 2022, but they did not. So to me, you know, that's kind of a gamble. You took a gamble to say, we think that home prices are going to stable or go down. But to be honest, they went up 6.5%. So, you know, we have to bear the extra burden of waiting 1 year to absorb those costs in as well. So yes, commercial properties have also gone up, but we just don't know yet where they're going to lie and what proportion they're going to be split among the homeowners and the commercial people. Thank you.
And Mr. Zioli, you have 2 minutes.
I think we have a very similar view on this. The one piece that I will add to that is we did have the option to defer, and that was done by the legislature. And it was interesting because there was a big city here in Connecticut, happens to be the capital, Hartford, was looking to defer their revaluation. But they didn't want to look like they were getting a special favor after the legislature had just given them a bunch of money and kind of bailed Hartford out in some financial woes that they were having. So there were 5 towns that were asked if they wanted to defer their revaluation. We were one of the 5, and we said yes. And then the following year, there's supposed to be another 5. I don't know if that happened or not, but that came down from the democratically controlled legislature that was trying to help Hartford. And we ended up getting on the coattails of that deferment, is actually how that happened. So it wasn't by us. We had the option, and the Board of Selectmen approved it, but it was because of a deferment request helping out one of the large cities of the state. That's all.
Gentlemen, starting with Mr. Moyer. Could you please outline your vision for the economic and business development of the town of Orange in general, and specifically the Route 1 corridor?
Yes. We have, you know, here in Orange, an Economic Development Corporation, and, you know, I know that Jim meets with them sometimes on a daily basis, several times a week, with their job to bring in potential businesses to the Post Road. I think that, you know, our vacancy rate is not that high. However, we have lost some considerable retail stores lately. And I think that in order to improve, we should get out there into our community and ask them, what is your vision for Orange and the Post Road? What do you want us to bring to the town? And then we need to work with our business leaders to go out there and try to achieve this. It's nice that we have Amazon trucks all over the place. I mean, they fill a need. But, you know, what else does the town of Orange want? What other type? There are plenty of other type of retails that aren't big retails that, you know, people want to see in town. You know, we can attract more restaurants to town so people can dine on the Post Road. You know, Christmas tree shop left. That's another big area to look at. So I think that there's just a lot of meetings that need to go on, and to meet with the business leaders and the community, come up with a plan, and then approach it as best as possible. You know, and last, you know, I heard Stu Leonard's is looking to expand again in Connecticut. So, you know, hopefully if you elect me as your new first selectman, maybe they'll revisit Orange as a new spot. Thank you.
Mr. Zioli, you have 3 minutes to respond.
There's a board of approximately, I think, 25 people. That is the Orange Economic Development Corporation, and there's the Orange Economic Development Commission, two separate entities. One is a town-appointed, one is a separate corporation that the first selectman sits on the board of. I think we've done a pretty damn good job. And the reason I can say that is I know one of these political parties sitting in this room had a heck of a time trying to find a headquarters. They did finally, but it wasn't easy. Our post road is a challenge. It was put in 400 years ago when it was the King's Highway. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it would have been nice now in 2023 if the lots were deeper, buildings were set back, and you could have some better greenscape and nice visual areas to go along the post road, kind of like up in Southbury, if anybody's familiar with that area. It's beautiful. But it was done at a more modern time, and that's what happened. I think that when we have other than Christmas tree shops, our vacancy rate for retail is 3.6%, I think. If you add Christmas tree shop into it, that goes up, unfortunately. However, 2 weeks after Christmas tree shops announced their closure, Anne Marie and I met with the principals of Brixmor out of New York, Chantel Voss and Mark Friedman, and we went over a lot of possibilities for that site. Since then, we have had negotiations with something that really could be good if they choose to fill that 57,000 square foot Christmas tree shop store. And every one of you in this room would be happy. The equipment that would go into that space offers a far better property tax level than a retail store where the only thing taxable within the building is the shelving and display cabinetry and stuff. The building is always going to be taxable. So we are working on that. It's a team from people from both sides of the aisle that are handling it in a very confidential manner, which is how these things are done. And I think our economic development has been pretty much incredible and continues in that manner.
Mr. Moyer, 2 minutes.
So I think as Jim stated, we do have a low vacancy rate, and, that's a good thing. But I still think we need to go out there and meet with the public and get some surveys and find out what the town residents want to put in Orange that they will use, come out, and enjoy. I think that, look at, I'm not going to compare it, but look at Milford. Milford has been booming. And I think, when they've brought business in that attracted their residents out to enjoy the town. And when people see that, more businesses want to come in and join. So I think that, once you get the business in that your residents want and see, they're likely going to attract more businesses. And then, hey, Milford just got a tax decrease because of all their economic development and the business model that they have. So I just think we need to create a better business model here in Orange. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zioli, what is your vision for residential development in Orange? And if you could address affordable housing, young people, and seniors, three groups that all have needs.
The first thing, I'm going to backtrack right to the end of his previous comment. The city of Milford. The city of Milford just gave a planned approval for 750 apartments at the Milford Mall. If any of you have any idea what that is going to do to their emergency services, their police, their fire, their paramedics, never mind their school systems, I don't want to be compared to Milford. And they're also looking at I think it was a 4% increase in their budget that Ben Blake proposed in the budget that they have. And I think that added up to a 10% increase in it. It all of a sudden changed when Ben was leaving to go work for the state. And they put it in then so that it wouldn't hopefully affect the candidate for this election come November. My vision for Orange, I think, has been quite clear. Not everybody was happy, not everybody was sad, but I am the chairman of the South Central Regional Council of Governments. We are getting hit from them, from the state, with planning for the groups that you ask, young and old. I followed that lead, and they were actually quite surprised that what we had done, and the apartments at Firelight helped work towards that. The affordable housing project on Smith Farm Road, Debbie Davis would like to spank me for putting that next to her. I know, she's not happy with it, but it is a beautiful project on a piece of land that has sat for sale for 25, 30 years. I think Ed Kravitz had that land for sale. That was a need. I saw the need. I didn't want it on the Post Road where the trailer park was. So now let's look and see what's where the trailer park used to be. A beautiful, big, new building that's going to pay a lot more in taxes than the trailer park did, that the first floor is Connecticut Orthopedics and the second floor is Hartford Healthcare. If they bring any of the MRI machines or anything like that into that building, do you know what the personal property tax is on that type of equipment? We have a home run, and a home run. We made 3 things there that worked. Will it have a little impact on the schools? Yes, it will. Do you want to be known as completely blocking out those that want to downsize, move to an apartment type living? Fieldstone Village, when I first got in office, was a vision. It suits a need. It's a great project, and it's on the high end of the radar, but it's a beautiful project. So I've looked at from the bottom side to the top side and tried to find projects that suffice for all.
Mr. Moyer, if you would like 3 minutes.
It's a challenge. How do we keep the seniors who want to live in Orange, who can't afford to keep up their house anymore? How do we attract and draw in young community members with the cost of housing the way it is? Affordable housing, boy, you know, that's a tough one. I think that all we can do is to keep evaluating our properties and work with our leaders to figure out when and where we can put new properties, new developments, and move seniors in who can actually afford it. Fieldstone is a great place. I just don't know how many people today can afford it. You would be selling your house and then having to have a mortgage to move into a place like Fieldstone. So it's a challenge for sure. I mean, every community has to deal with that. You know, we have to figure out a way, where can we fit it in? I agree, the Post Road, not necessarily the best place for it. But at the same time, we need to come up with a plan and development. You know, our communities are spread out all over the place in Orange, and maybe that's the topography of the land here, but we don't really have a generalized area where we can have seniors together, where they can all kind of mix in, anywhere to walk to stores. It's a tough situation to deal with, and I think you know, a challenge not only today but for the future.
Thank you very much. Mr. Zioli, you have 2 minutes.
Well, the projects I already mentioned are bus line accessible, shopping accessible, other enhancements accessible. I don't agree with putting all of our seniors or all of our young people in any one particular spot. I'm not a fan of that. I think that they have the right to live wherever around town. We're hindered by the fact of sewers versus septic. We don't have sewers here. We don't have riverfront, waterfront property. We do have some sewers in the commercial areas and near the Post Road, and we have sewer. We had a sewer agreement with Derby for Fieldstone Village, but you can't just pick out one area and put housing in the middle of a commercial industrial zone. They're not compatible, noise-wise, odor-wise, trucks, traffic, and all of that. As we age, and I know it, our reflexes sometimes age a little bit, and driving a car and something, we're not always as quick as we used to be. So you're gonna put somebody in a senior age group in the middle of a commercial, industrial, busy area, that's not for me. A lot of our seniors struggle to stay in their home, yet then when they move to an apartment, it's too expensive because now they're making a monthly $2,000 or more payment. If they move to a condo, you have the HOA fees and all the maintenance that goes with that, that's not saving. They, in their house, with a planned budget, can survive better than not. There's a group here in town that are following, I think it's the East Rock Society. I don't know the right name for them. But there's a group that are working to keep seniors in their homes and make it possible. Ask Fred Kendrick, ask Lib Meyer, ask Trish Treat, I think. I forget who else. There's some others on that committee. And it's a really good idea.
All right, we have to,
Done.
yep, we have to stop now. I think at this point, it's just a little after 8 that we're going to take a break for about 10 minutes.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being prompt. We'd like to start with our second round of questioning for our candidates. Gentlemen, again, starting with Mr. Moore, how would you balance the economic development of the town of Orange with the environmental impact of that development? You have 3 minutes. How would you balance the economic development of the town of Orange with the environmental impact of that development?
You know, so tough town here. We have a lot of wetlands, and we have to be careful when we look at and develop our property. We have a great planning and zoning board who assists with that as far as how that affects sustainability. You know, I was looking the other day, I'm on the Orange Recycling Committee, and Sustainable Connecticut is a program that all 169 municipalities are allowed to take advantage of. And only 131 have applied, some earning different levels. And all our neighbors have applied, but Orange has not. So I'm kind of wondering, you know, why a town that's instilled with farming and rich community doesn't have any kind of sustainable program in place. I think that is something that we need to do. We need to apply, we need to get on the radar, and we need grants. I mean, we have a lot of issues to handle. The transfer station, you know, it's a costly thing. Trash has gone up, recycling costs have gone up. We just started, you know, a food scrap program, which is half the cost. We're trying to find ways to cut our carbon footprint, and we need also to look at our buildings and see where we can use renewable energy sources and cut electricity costs. So I think it's a challenge, but it's something that we have to look at and we have to plan for, and we have to be involved so that we are out there able to get grants, so that we have a plan in place to not only develop our future lots and plans, but also to do it keeping the environment intact and safe for everybody to use. Thank you.
Ms. Gizioli, 3 minutes.
Well, I think the environment is pretty important to all of us. The air we breathe, the water we drink. Though many part of Orange has wells, that's a very important thing to consider. Years ago, it wasn't quite paid attention to as much. But we had the opportunity to be on a program through the Council of Governments that we have a specialist that oversees, Pam. And she started the food scrap recycling with governmental assistance, I'll call it, in West Haven. then Guilford and Madison. West Haven has abandoned theirs now for many reasons. They stopped their program. Guilford had to stop part of theirs for some confusion with users, and Madison's is trying to get it going, but there's not a lot of participation. The food scrap program just started in Orange, and it was because of me talking with Country Disposal, Michael Cowden, who I've known since he was a kid. And he proposed a program, and then he met with the recycling committee, and they made some changes and requests. So at this time, instead of it being a house-to-house type of food scrap pickup, there are toters up at the transfer station straight ahead, up by the Goodwill container there, where you could bring your food scraps if you so choose, if you don't compost in your yard or if you just throw them in your trash and are looking for an alternative. But that started, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, and it's half the cost of our MSW, municipal solid waste hauling, out of there. But that was brought to the town by me. The cardboard used to all go into the trash originally. I was the one who brought in dumpsters, made a deal with Marcus Paper. Mr. Zamkoff lives here in town. And we started keeping separate dumpsters, roll-off containers, and we sell the cardboard to Marcus Paper. It's a volatile market. Sometimes we make more money, sometimes not as much, but he's been very fair to us. There's other areas where we do recycle. Our biggest problem is our brush and all, and we finally found a new company that grinds it, mulches it. Our brush is ground and goes to Lebanon to earth grow. Any of you who buy that Scott's mulches for around your flower beds and stuff, some of that comes from the town of Orange. It's sold to Scott's up in Lebanon, Connecticut. I'm out of time.
Mr. Moyer, 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think we can agree that we all have certain, responsibility to our environment to keep it safe and fresh. And, I think that, if a program like food scraps was abandoned in other towns and it turns out that it doesn't work here, then we look for other options. I think that, the one thing you have to do is you have to just keep looking until you find some suitable option that can help you move forward. And that, again, whether it's finding a new way of renewable energy, whether it is, how to reduce your trash waste, working, there's other programs. I think we just have to find what's suitable for the residents and also, keep our open space uncontaminated and enjoy the outdoors as intended. Thank you.
Mr. Zioli, understanding that some elements of Fred Wolf Park are behind us, such as the playground, what are your thoughts on the further development of the park?
And it is a beautiful playground. The only thing I have left to do is some driveway road improvements. Other than that, the committee is handling it. I'm staying at arm's length so that, as I said at the Selectmen's meeting the other night, if I attended those meetings, Mr. Pisano would accuse me of steering the committee, so I don't go to their meetings. There's a lot of opportunities there. There's 72 acres there. I think it might be 76, actually, because we've acquired some other parcels that adjoin it. And they're going to see some more improvements down there. There will be things that aren't there currently. There will be outdoor pickleball. We're getting indoor pickleball in the building where the grind has bought, but there will be outdoor pickleball. I hope there's another walk track down there. The walk track over here at the fairgrounds is almost overused. It's so well used. I'd like to see improvements with that. I don't necessarily want to see more fields, because the lawnmower we have to do that is a very expensive piece of machinery. When I bought that one, the one that I replaced was $41,000. The one that we have now was $95,000. By the time we go to replace that one, it'll probably be $130,000, $140,000. The grass is an expensive maintenance, and we have enough baseball fields, we have soccer fields, we have lacrosse fields. All these groups have come to us for improvements, and they've gotten improvements with time. There will be other things. One thing there won't be, at least I don't believe in it, they're a maintenance nightmare, is a water park. Water parks, they last 3 years, they don't get all the water blowing out of the elbows and stuff underground, and they end up breaking up the cement to get to the piping to fix it. Milford has found that out multiple times with a couple of their water parks. One is just 3 years old, and they had to break it all up. Water parks are a maintenance nightmare, and quite honestly, that water is part of it, I should say, not all, is recycled water. And in this day and age, with a lot of things that are going on, I don't know if that's the best way to go with everything that's out there in our world. I'll leave it at that. I'm done. Out.
All right, Mr. Moyer, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, I think the playground over at Fred Wolf Park there is obviously a great addition. But I also think that there's, still some people who aren't happy with how everything went down. There's still 14.4 roughly acres that's being farmed for corn. I know that Tom Paisano, it's not relevant, but still, he collected 568 signatures of people who just aren't happy with the movement over there at Fred Wolf Park. Pickleball courts, that's an interesting one, because I think at the Board of Selectmen meeting, Jim said he was applying for a steep grant, and then I saw it in the newspaper. But steep grants were just recently announced, and I didn't see Orange's name on there. And when checked with the governor's office, it said we didn't apply. So I just want to know, what that situation with that is, because I thought we were getting money for pickleball courts. I know that you don't always get what you ask for, but I just want to know, did we even apply for it? And also, Fred Wolf Park still needs some sort of permanent restrooms. There's still a lot to be developed over there. There's talk, I don't know how it will come out, but, are we going to do any paving over there? And what other type of ball fields or soccer fields are going to go in? I think there's still a lot to plan over there, and I think that, the committee, the ad hoc committee, I don't know why it doesn't have Tom Paisano on there. You may not like Tom Paisano, you may not agree with him, but the man knows a lot about the Orange Soccer Association, he knows a lot about the park, and he knows a lot about engineering. And I think, to not have a viewpoint, whether it's contrasting or not, on your committee hurts the overall evaluation. Thank you.
Mr. Zioli, you have 2 minutes.
Unfortunately, OPM, after I had all the paperwork set and all for that grant, OPM wouldn't accept it because we hadn't cleared out the grants for the playground, which was $500,000 in grants. That's exactly what happened. We were trying to rush to get it done, and we couldn't get one cleared out in order to do the other. Our side was done, our paperwork was done, but the state takes a little bit longer. We haven't received those reimbursements yet on that $500,000 from the state. We will, it'll come, but that's exactly what happened with that. Tom Paisano is one person. Tom Paisano put the Orange Soccer Association and himself in jeopardy of defamation of character with all the stuff he said about the Vesputas and the Hines. Once I put that in a letter, a column that I wrote, all of a sudden he stopped introducing himself each month at our meetings as the president of OSA and only as Tom Paisano of whatever road over there. So, that's an interesting line to walk, and it's an interesting line to be very careful of. He is not the only person that knows about Wolf Park, and I've seen repeatedly about this petition and all. He was told by a member of your committee that his petition was not valid. So you might want to talk to people on your committee, and you'll find out about that, but it's not a valid petition by way of our town charter. And he knows that. That's why at one meeting, he stood and said, well, there's no need to submit a petition like this. Then last month, he came and he was on fire and brimstone, and he was going to submit a petition. Mrs. Williams asked him if he had submitted it. No. So why not? I don't know.
Gentlemen, as you know, there's a marijuana dispensary going in Orange. What are your thoughts regarding the opening of other such facilities in Orange, Connecticut? We'll begin with Mr. Moyer. You have 3 minutes.
Just to backtrack 1 second, I mean, I did say that Tom Paisano's petition was not relevant. I was more just asking why somebody of his wealth and knowledge wasn't on the committee itself. Going to the question at hand, the cannabis. We're only allowed one in Orange. That's my take on it. I mean, you can only have one facility per so many residents, and it'll be interesting to see when it opens up what kind of revenue it generates. How popular it is. I don't know if it's going to be a big money maker yet or not. The last, I heard, we have to go after and chase the money. It doesn't just flow into us, that we have to file all sorts of reports. So it'll be interesting. Just wait and see. But I don't think that at the moment there should be any talk of any further facilities until we see how this one opens and operates. Thank you.
Mr. Zioli, 3 minutes.
On cannabis?
Yes, we're trying to move forward.
Okay, we'll try to move that. I'm not a user or in need of cannabis, although some days I have a few aches and pains, maybe it would help. But that store came in under the change of the legislature. It started out as one per community of, you have to be up to 25,000 people to have it. So like Milford, I guess, could have 2 legally. We could have 1 legally, the way their guidelines were set. And then I was told at one point that the legislature was considering changing that regulation. However, I think our zoning board took action on that, so that hopefully will not be a problem in the future. We're supposed to get, the town is supposed to get 3% of the gross sales from that facility. But the state's not collecting the money like they collect sales tax from grocery stores and other types of stores. The dispensary has to submit their paperwork. The town of Orange has to have somebody who is going to be asking for that paperwork. And then we have to bill the dispensary for that money, whatever may be owed. Now, when they first came in, they said, oh, it could be up to $900,000 to $1 million a year, I think. And you say, wow, we could do a lot with that money. Well, then as you read the bill, it's very kind of tight on what you can use it for. We can use it, but it has to be used for things like the DARE officer. It has to be used for our youth services, drug and alcohol awareness program officer or employee. It can be used for other things within the narcotics umbrella with the police department. It can be used for some streetscape improvements within their area. There is a distance on there. And they came in right under the radar with this because they already are operating in Milford, I think down on West River Street near the Post Road or in that area. And they have first dibs at relocating to make a dispensary for both recreational and medicinal use. So they're within that 10-mile window, so that's how they were able to move so quickly. However, fitting out that former TD Bank building seems to be challenging. None of us have been in there yet, so we'll see how it pans out with time, but it's part of breaking up of the moral fabric of our world, unfortunately. Those who want to use it always find ways to use it, but this is something that's different. Done, sorry.
Mr. Moyer, 2 minutes.
I mean, I really don't have much to add. I think that we're in agreement here. I think that, there's a lot to wait out and see what happens. We don't know what the revenue is going to be. And we don't know, like Jim said, there's a lot of restrictions on how you can spend it. So I think at this time, I don't foresee anything else going forward, and I certainly hope not. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zioli, in your role as first selectman, what can be done to strengthen arts and culture in Orange?
That's a challenge. There are a couple groups that work very hard at this. Currently, the Orange Players has their shows on. Amity Drama Club works and tries to present their plays, I think 2 a year as a general rule also. We've tried to get other groups. There was movement, well, several years ago, the woman who was in the military, who was a priest or minister or pastor, whatever she was at the Episcopal Church, but she was in the Army, and she got transferred. I can't remember her name, but she wanted to start a chorus. I won't call it a choir because it wasn't in church, but like a chorus to do this. And I thought it was a great idea. She came to see me, and she was going to spearhead this, and she had some other people involved to do it, and it would have been great. And then she got transferred to like Virginia or Quantico, I don't know, somewhere, and so that ended that. But we have a few groups that try very hard to bring arts. The thing is, there's a lot of arts beyond the Orange Players doing their shows, Amity with their drama. Quite honestly, for me, I'm not a plays person. I like music. If we did something maybe that, like this chorus that was going to happen, would have been something that I really liked. I gave her a couple examples. There's a Welsh chorus that on YouTube you can find that are very nice. There's some other groups, some of them are just amazing. But there's arts, there's sculpture. We've had talk with the Conservation Commission about sculptures and large sculptures in some of these open space areas and things too, as kind of beautifications and enhancements and all. I even like the things that are as simple as those. They take after the old whirly gigs, but they're much more intricate, where they look like they're folding and blowing in and out, not just spinning things. So those are all arts, and it doesn't have to be a play. There's lots of things that could be, and sooner or later it may happen.
Mr. Moyer, you have 3 minutes.
I think arts and culture is important to the fabric of any community and society. I think that, people are going to get enjoyment out of whether it be music, whether it be seeing a sculpture, going and seeing a painting, or even a play. And I think that, Orange needs to do a better job at attracting what they can, because, the youth of today, even the seniors of today, they need a place to go, they need a place to unwind. And I think, I go to their shows and I think they're great. I just don't think that they get the publicity or the attention that they deserve. They need better recognition. And, why can't we bring some sort of little arts theater to Orange? I mean, we just need, a forward-thinking space to have and encourage people. You don't have to like the arts, you don't have to like music, but there are people who do, and we should cater to them and show that we are an all-inclusive community to everybody who wants to be here.
Mr. Zioli, you have 2 minutes.
I like different things. I have a friend who actually does food concessions at both our Fireman's Carnival and the Orange Fair, who invited me, and I went to the Medieval Times. And he does has some food concessions up there at the Medieval Times event. And it's pretty amazing. And those people really get into that and love that. I mean, I remember serving turkey legs to people all dressed up in fancy times of that time and all, and I watched some of that, and I thought that was incredible. You know, I mean, but I don't know how many of you in this room have ever been there. I don't know. Okay, you've been there. Good. But, you know, so we all have different likes and dislikes, and the groups that try to push their programs and stuff need to be certain to do it. We announce them, but it's up to those groups, they're private organizations, to work to market themselves too. And that's really what it comes down to. There are so many different areas, directions you can head when you say that, it's just amazing. But I go to things that other people don't go to, and, you know, I mean, maybe some of you people might want to try some of those things. How many of you have ever been to a cattle auction? Probably not many. I have. You know, I mean, so we all have different likes and dislikes. And Janice, I'm sure, has. Her father used to take her. But, you know, so you can't criticize a person because they have their own life as well as the first selectman life. You need to take time for yourself and for the town. I'm done. That's it. He told me I'm done.
We'll start with Mr. Moyer again. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on the education system, both in the Orange and Amity systems, and what is your vision for charting their course into the future? If you could please include your thoughts on the education budget for both systems.
You know, I think that the Board of Eds do a great job running the schools, and I think that the responsibility of the town and the first selectman is just to support our teachers and support the boards and look at the budgets and make sure that they make sense. I think that, you know, Amity was in a difficult situation. You know, they were always being criticized that they were asking for too much money, they were overfunded. At the same time, I think we were overfunded. So it's kind of interesting that we were, you know, criticizing Amity, but, you know, they're different than the way Orange runs their boards. I think, you know, our responsibility for now is to make sure that the school buildings are properly upgraded and modernized, make sure that they have what they need, because that's kind of what we control. We control the infrastructure and, you know, making sure that our kids are safe in school and that they have everything they need to succeed. But other than that, I think, you know, the Board of Eds do a great job running the curriculum, and that's the way it should be. Thank you.
Mr. Zioli, 3 minutes.
There's always much to do about education, but Orange's education is by far much better than others. I think that the Orange Elementary budget was fully funded, as asked, and the Amity budget, I think, was fully funded ultimately. Oh yeah, and there's people on both sides, some love it, some hate it, some fight to the death. Quite a bit of that fund balance money that we have that is paying for the roads and improvements we have was Amity refund money, because you never quite knew what you would get. So we had a year when Amity had I think it was $3 million surplus. We got $1.5 million back. But the Board of Finance had figured only $800,000 in was their best guesstimate in that budget. So you have to work with it, so it leaves excess money, which is how that fund balance really grew. Amity is no longer returning that money. They're keeping a 2% now fund for other capital improvements and all, I believe, over there. And it does have some strict guidelines on it, but there still is money that was beyond that I think we did get a small return after the 2% fund that they kept. So our education budgets are very well kept. But my concern, I have 3 boys who work for me, who, when they started, really struggled with basic math and English and even science. And then I had a woman working for me, a grandmother, who has two wonderful granddaughters who are 14, gonna be 15. They wanted to help. They struggled with basic math, selling corn and tomatoes, adding it up, somebody handing them money, and then returning. I think our focus in our education system is a little out of whack. I think that, you may want to teach other things in the school system, but I think you need to teach the basics first, because we are failing in teaching the children the basic things they need. They're not always going to have a cash register that tells them to hand back $3.36 out of a 10. They're not always going to have a scale that tells them exactly what it's going to be on there. They don't know how to write cursive, to actually write a letter to their grandmother. No, we do it on a computer or send it out that way. History, you can tear down all the statues you want, but it doesn't change history. And these are the things that are lacking. When I was growing up, I wanted to be an elementary school math teacher or a high school American history teacher. It's a good thing I didn't do those things. I'd be out of a job.
Mr. Moyer, 2 minutes.
I guess I got a little lost there. Sorry. Again, I think it just comes back to we need to support the schools. I mean, we don't set we don't set the curriculum for the schools. We don't set what they teach. I mean, that's up to the Board of Ed and their superintendents and principals to figure out what the best course of action is and work with the state to file what they need to do. I just don't, all we can do is stand behind and take care of the buildings and encourage our residents to support the budgets. They're 67% roughly of our budget, and that's why people move to Orange. We need to make sure that we support our teachers.
All right. On a related note, understanding that the first selectman does not have a direct role in how the curriculum is developed or anything like that, what are your thoughts on issues surrounding what reading materials students in Orange and elsewhere, I suppose, should be allowed to access, and what kinds of curriculum they should be encountering? This is more of your personal view on this.
Okay, me or him?
Starting with you, Mr.
Oh, okay. I think that there's something called parenting, and I think parenting is where some of this taboo that is out there belongs. I'm fortunate I grew up on a farm, so I learned a lot of those things in a different manner than many kids nowadays. But I've had kids stand there and watch a calf pop out of a cow and go, oh, they didn't quite know how all that happened. But they learn soon enough. We have a bull that weighs about almost 3,000 pounds on our farm, so they get good lessons. But as far as the curriculum in the schools, I think the schools are overstepping their bounds. I think the administrations that are setting this way up all the way at the top level, and this passes down all the way down to the local level, are pushing things that don't need to be. And I think with time, everybody in this room has found their way to what they like and don't like, and what they find that's acceptable and not acceptable. I think that, again, to me, we're failing the students, worrying about this sexual innuendo stuff is all I can title it as, and not teaching the basics that our children need to succeed in business, in the world, to make a complete package. These boys here, they're all, 16, 17, I don't think any of you are 18 yet. You'll figure it out when the time comes, probably, right? Yeah. You don't need these books that they're putting on people when they're 5 years old, or 7 years old, or 8 years old. So reading, writing, and arithmetic are very important to me. And they're failing the kids. They are.
Excuse us.
You're not on the panel.
Excuse us.
Shush.
Excuse us. Please allow the candidates to answer the question. We're sorry.
Yes. I'm done.
Okay, Mr. Moyer, you have 3
Couldn't
minutes.
resist.
You know, we can't just go back and say, hey, I wish it was the way it was 50 years ago. The world is changing. The world is evolving. Unfortunately, there are subjects out there that are uncomfortable to people. But you know what? You have to move forward. You have to address it. You can't just shut it in a closet anymore and leave it. I mean, yeah, parents do have a certain right to teach their children at home what they want to do. And, you know, the schools have an obligation to try to prepare the students as best. I mean, arithmetic, math, I mean, I get it, but who doesn't have an iPhone and a calculator now? You don't need, I mean, what do you need to know? I mean, it'd be nice to know, but everybody's on a computer now. So, you know, writing in cursive, same thing. I mean, people don't do that anymore. Everything now is like e-signed. So I think that, you know, we just have to go with the times, and you have to adapt and focus on what's coming down the pipeline and teach kids what they're going to come up with in the real world. And I don't think that's math or cursive writing. Thank you.
Mr. Zioli, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I hope you can fit your Hallmark card into the computer to print out what you need to print on it. I don't have anything more to say on the topic. I think I've said more than enough.
Gentlemen, I have the honor of asking you the last question this evening. First, I'd like to thank everybody for being here this evening, and thank you for being patient and listening. And thank you to our readers of the Orange Times who sent in suggested questions. We hope you've heard, at least in part, some of what you wanted us to ask the candidates. And so, in closing tonight, gentlemen, I'd like to ask you both, starting with you, Mr. Moyer, could you please tell us who your political role models are?
My political role models. You know, I like that. I liked Kennedy, even though he was pretty much before my time. I thought that he was a really good president, and I think that what he stood for was great, and unfortunately he did not get to complete his mission. Currently, I thought Obama was great. I thought Obama did a lot of good things, and that's kind of, you know, who I look up to in the current model. I just think, you know, you need a leader out there who's in front of the people, talking, soothing them, letting them know what's going on, and it's got to be heartfelt, and it's got to be true, and you know, issues are tough to deal with every day, and I think that you know, those are kind of my two role models.
Mr. Zioli, 3 minutes.
That's difficult. However, I did just get a text from one of the teachers that's watching this at home. The state of Connecticut Department of Education just came out with a new mandate on cursive. Just thought I'd say it. Believe it or not. I think it's so important to have a person who is not afraid, who is able to step up, solve a problem, has quick wit, yet knows how to handle a group. I think Kennedy would have been an okay president had he not been, unfortunately, cut short in his term. Actually, I think that his brother is rocking the boat over their nephew, cousin, whatever he is, Robert Kennedy, there, his nephew, I guess. I think that could be quite interesting. But I think that Ronald Reagan had a very quick sense of wit about him. He didn't take crap from anybody. I mean, I remember I've seen it over and over again after they did try to shoot him that time, or did shoot him. Then he was speaking at a podium at another event, and a balloon popped. And without a blink, he's like, you missed. And he just kept going with his speech, you know? I admire that because he wasn't afraid to say, oh, that might be the wrong thing to say. And I think I'm a lot like that. People don't always like what I say, but it's what's going to be said. I even could live probably, I think a person, you got to go way back, go back to the 1800s. I think Abraham Lincoln really was quite a person. I am a history buff. As I said earlier, I would like to have been an American history teacher. And he stuck his neck out farther than anybody could imagine for what he did in creating, the Emancipation Proclamation and freeing the people. A lot of people lost their lives over that Civil War, and he was out there in the middle of it. He was really a very good leader. And I think those are two people that I really think a lot about. I didn't see them trip and fall down stairs or need prompters. They just got out there and did it. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say those two gentlemen are people I like.
Mr. Moyer. Mr. Moyer, 2 minutes.
Nothing, I answered it, so really no rebuttal here.
Very well. Thank you, gentlemen, for both being here tonight.
I just also, aside from thanking our great candidates,
Steve, before you go on, we do have 3 minutes each for you to
thank you, Brandon.
to give closing statements.
Absolutely.
Describing why you're the best choice for first selectman, starting with Mr. Zioli.
Steve, do you have anything you would like to say first? I'm more than open. I'll yield time to Steve.
I do want to thank Brandon and Dave for the great job they've done. Thank you, gentlemen.
And I think it's very important that I let him do that, because as soon as this is done and I say what I'm going to say and Mr. Moyer is going to say what he's going to say, you're all going to clap, stand up, and run for the doors. So this way, at least Steve got to do his closing, and I think that's very important. And thank you again for hosting this tonight. And your team.
Okay, you can start your 3 minutes now.
We'll start. Yes, thank you. Well, I think I have proven to the town of Orange fiscal responsibility, management responsibility, able to deal with big problems and small problems, whether it was a hurricane years ago, getting people's power back on, working with the UI, getting snow plowed, trucks out, roads plowed, and yes, I've driven those trucks, doing that sort of thing, meeting with people. The hardest thing I ever had, I'll tell you though, was when a good friend of mine's daughter was in a motor vehicle accident with her boyfriend, and they were killed. And the news kept playing that video over and over and over. And as you got to see that video more, you picked up more things in it. And I saw that young woman flying through the air. When I got called to go to that accident that day, I said, well, what's that over there? And they had a tarp over there. And it turned out it was her. I've never forgotten that. It was on the weekend. Her father came in my office Monday morning. Is Mr. Zioli here? I'd like to speak to him. To hold a grown man in your arms crying over losing his daughter was the hardest thing that I think I've ever done as first selectman. That was one of the most difficult things that a person could do. However, I love this town. Was born here, raised here, continue to be here, continue to work for the residents of Orange. As I said earlier, I did my time with the Orange Volunteer Fire Department. I support the Orange Fire Department. The police department, we're on calls with them all the time. I had to deal with our next debate, which is October 29th at Or Shalom. They put in a request for police officers on site. Absolutely, and it will be absorbed by the town. We're not going to charge. It's a debate between Mr. Moyer and I at the men's club there. They called. Absolutely. With all that's going on, with this craziness in the world, I spoke to it at our selectmen's meeting the other night. It's unthinkable what these people are going through. It is unthinkable, and it's unacceptable in this day and age. The town of Orange is in good hands, and that's not by accident. Many of you have been here, but many of you are new. Why did you move here? 18 years I've been sitting in the chair, so I think I've had some of the impact on why you've moved here. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm never going to hurt the town of Orange, and we continue to move forward with economic development, housing progress, and I'm done.
Okay. Mr. Moyer, you have 3 minutes.
So again, thank you, everybody, for coming out. I think it's important to come out and support the candidates and hear everybody's viewpoints. So, you know, Jim alluded to the fact that he's been here 64 years and has been in office now for 18 years. So for me, you know, that's great, but to me it kind of becomes passive. You just kind of steer the ship down the road, try not to bump into anything, and make any mistakes. So I think, you know, the incentive is when you're new, you have fresh ideas, you work a little harder, and you're more motivated. You know, you're not settled. So, you know, I want to stress that no matter what party affiliation you are, we are a community. We still have common goals, and that many issues we're going to agree on. And then we need to figure out how to address these issues. You know, I'm looking forward to working with all sides to make sure that our town issues are addressed and resolved for the betterment of our residents. The community of Orange needs to have a say in shaping the future. It's not the responsibility of just one man or even just one board to make decisions unilaterally without considering the input of the residents. I will always look to the future of Orange. I'd like to point out that I am not and do not wish to be a one-man show. To be an effective leader, you need to demonstrate confidence, compassion, and character to be successful. You need to assess, develop, and maintain a positive climate to foster trust with those you work with. It's counterproductive if you deflect responsibility, lose your temper, or come off as unapproachable to many people. So this talented and dedicated town has many employees that deserve recognition for their expertise and the work that they do for our town. You, the voters, now have the task of reviewing your current administration and deciding if you're getting everything you want and need from your leader, or if you want somebody with fresh ideas, a successful business career, and modern ideas to come forward. You know, the word change can make people feel insecure and anxious. It kind of conjures up the unknown. So I just want to leave you tonight with a quote from the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates, who said, "The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new." So please make sure you go out, mail in your absentee votes, and get to the polls and vote in person on Tuesday, November 7th. I'd like to ask you to vote for me, and thank you for considering me.
Can I say one thing? Not responding to him. It's a public service.
Okay.
Okay. Again, thank you for this debate. And then the next debate is October 29th at 7 p.m. at Or Shalom. And the third debate being put on by the Amity, yeah, there is. It's a mock trial.
Gentlemen.
It's a mock trial.
Excuse me.
It's a mock trial club out of Amity. and they wish to run the debate. They wanted to run it, but for some reason it didn't happen at the high school. Daniel Maurerman was in the room earlier. I'm not sure if he's still here, but he is the chair of that group of students from Amity that want to have a debate between the two of us in this room on November 2nd at 7 p.m. So if you want to support the Amity students of this mock trial and law group, it is November 2nd at 7 p.m. in this group. So Mr. Davis is here. He's the chairman. He has the direct connect to that group, but they have asked repeatedly to be able to do that. So the chairman of the other party is saying it's not
Okay,
happening,
I
but
think,
the Amity students want to.
I think,
That's
thank
it,
you,
done.
thank you. Done.